So on Friday, right? So we were discussing about the constructors concept. Okay, just to refresh your memory and those who did not attend the last class, right? So constructors are a special methods which are used to instantiate the object. So whenever create any object with and is to initialize the variables of that specific object. Okay, so it's so constructions is basically to create the right. So as it is, as the name says, destructors are used to destroy or to clean up the memory associated for that specific object. That's why it says destructors. Okay, it is to clear the memory of the object. Okay, so constructors always contains the name of the class. Okay, the same way destructors also contains the same as the name of the class, but only thing is that it prefixed with a tilde symbol. Okay, and the constructors can be invoked explicitly or implicitly, but whereas destructors is always implicitly invoked. Okay, so as I said, when I say it is called to destroy the object, that means basically it is going to clean up the memory associated with that object. Okay, so first thing is destructors is contains the name is same as the class name, but prefixed with the tilde symbol. Okay, and it is implicitly invoked. There is no need to explicitly call that method. Okay, and the main purpose of destructors is to destroy the object or to clean up the memory. Okay, and one more thing is that destructors will not contains any parameters. Okay, and also we don't need to mention any access modifiers. Just probably I can explain you through by showing the sample program. Okay, just a simple program. Okay, the class name itself is constructor demo, and if you see, I have declared or I have defined one constructor method. Okay, so as I mentioned, constructor name or the destructor name both contain same as class name. Okay, so only thing is the destructor always prefix with a tilde symbol. Okay, so I have one constructor and I have one destructor. Okay, and what I'm going to do is here my class name is destructor example. So I have created couple of objects. Okay, object 1 and object 2. So as I mentioned in the last week class, whenever you create any object using the new keyword, that means basically you are going to instantiate the object, it calls the constructor. Okay, so it invokes the constructor, and whatever I have mentioned in the constructor method, it simply executes the statements. Okay, the same way, at the same way, destructor is basically going to be invoked whenever we destroy or whenever we say like no, hey, I no longer require the object, right? So if you want to explicitly invoke the destructor, you can do it. Okay, but by default always destructor is implicitly invoked. Okay, just to ensure that like the object, because I say like no, how do I know, or how do I compiler, or how do the CLR knows that this particular object is no longer used, right? So basically, if you want to forcefully convey the message to CLR that like no, hey, like no, my object is no longer required, and go ahead and clean up, right? So if you want to convey that message, basically you have to do like this. Okay, object 1 equal to null. That means you are cleaning up the values of that object. Okay, null means nothing, right? So basically you're cleaning up whatever the variables it has, it's simply going to wipe up. Okay, so as I mentioned, destructors are implicitly invoked, right? So when we implicitly invoke, even though I have my method here, it will not execute. If you see, if you look at the program, we feel that like, hey, like, I have two destructors, object one and object two. So whenever we have a object created, ideally the control goes to the constructor and it prints. So for these two statements, because I'm creating two objects, it prints two times this method. Constructor object is created. But though I am making the object null, okay, and null means basically like you're conveying the message to CLR that hey, like this object one is no longer required. So you go ahead and do the cleanup. Okay, but if you see, if I try to run, right, see, it only sent the message that like constructor object created, but it did not say anything about the destructor. Okay, why? Because destructors are always invoked implicitly. So there is no need or there is no way you can invoke it. Okay, so it's just remember, destructor you cannot invoke on your own. Okay, so just for your reference purpose, I just mentioned whatever it says. So destructor method is implicitly called by the garbage collector. Okay, but you cannot see those print statements in the output. Once the object is unused or it is ready for garbage collection, then it is the responsibility of the garbage collector to destroy that unused object and free up the memory from heap. They say I said heap because all the object references are stored in the heap memory. Okay, so very clear. And one more thing I want to convey is normally if you define a constructor, okay, you give a access specifiers or modifiers, right? But for destructors, you don't give. Okay, if you try to give also, it will throw the error. Okay, you see this error. The modifier public is not valid for this item. Okay, and one more thing is, so basically what I said is it is used to destroy the object. That means the memory of the object. Okay, and the name of the destructor is similar to the class name, but it is prefixed with a tilde symbol because normally the constructor also contains the same as class name. See, destructor demo class name, constructor also class name. Okay, but in order to differentiate between constructor and destructor, you have to use a tilde method, tilde symbol. Okay, and one more thing is that like you cannot pass any parameters. Also, you do not need to mention any access modifiers as a prefix. Okay, so now it would be a question like what are all the scenarios where the object of a class gets destroyed. Okay, so there are total three ways you can wipe out the memory of the object. Okay, the first thing is whenever the program gets its execution, right? Once your program is successfully ran, then each and every object memory will be automatically destroyed by the garbage collector. So basically it's a garbage collector responsibility is okay. It always looks out whenever it identifies that there is an object which is no longer used by the program, it invokes and destroys the data of that specific object. Okay, so one is at the end of the program execution. Second thing is suppose you have thousands of line. Okay, so you know it's not good to wait for end of the statement, end of the program to invoke the garbage collector. So what happens is internally garbage collector looks you know throughout the execution of the program, looks out the scenarios where the object reference is no longer required. So implicitly it looks out and clean up the memory. Okay, so basically we don't need to mention like when to clean up the memory. Okay, it is the garbage collector responsibility to invoke and to clean up the unused object memory. But there are some scenarios where as a programmer you wanted to initiate the wipeout, memory wipeout. So if you want to initiate that cleanup, right, you have to use a method called collect. When I say collect, internally you are forcing the garbage collector to wipe out the unused object memory. Okay, so three things. By default it is implicitly invoked, but if you want to invoke explicitly, you have to use a collect statement. Okay, and what I said, like by default it wipes out the memory at the end of the program execution. Second thing is garbage collector internally looks out periodically to see when it has to clean up, and it will invoke the method to wipe out the memory. Okay, so let me show you one example where right. Okay, okay, so here I have same as the previous program, destructor demo is my class name. I have one method for constructor. Okay, because it is same as the class name, and I have one destructor as well. Okay, so in the destructor I have a couple of statements. One is to print the class, the current class name. Second one is to say that like no object has been destroyed. Okay, same as like the previous program. So two objects here, one and two. Okay, and you see here after instantiating the object one, okay, I said I forcefully set the object one equal to null. Okay, but I said like if you want to explicitly invoke the garbage collector, you have to say collect statement, right? So this one you have to use gc garbage collector dot collect statement. This is you're explicitly forcing the CLR to go and wipe out the memory of the object one. Okay, so since you are explicitly mentioning, then in that cases it goes and execute the destructor. Let's see here. Okay, so first thing is basically you have created two uh, objects. Okay, so whenever you create the object, it automatically invokes the constructor and prints the statement. Okay, and then you forcefully set the object one to null, and you are forcefully invoking the correct statements. So whenever you explicitly invoke the correct statement, it goes to the destructor method and it prints whatever is there. Okay, so here get type dot nemo is basically it's a the class. Okay, so the class is what it is, destructor demo. Okay, so it just prints that. So basically I'm trying to give an example that by default destructors are implicitly invoked, but in case if you want to invoke, you can still explicitly invoke by using the gc dot correct method. Okay, so in the previous example I set it to null, but I did not invoke the correct statement. So if the CLR automatically invokes implicitly, then there is no way of executing this destructor statements. But if you forcefully do it, it automatically invokes it. So clear guys, destructors? Any questions on this?
Yeah, now we are good or not?
Okay, so just a few more points. Okay, so as you know, constructors you can have any number of methods. Okay, you can have the default constructor and you can pass different variables. So you can always the flexibility of creating more than one constructor. That means constructor allows the overloading, but whereas destructor You cannot overload it. It has to be only one method. As I said, it doesn't accept any parameters. It doesn't return any values and no access modifiers as well. Okay. So destructors you cannot call explicitly, but in case if you want to clean up the memory, you can invoke using gc.curl statement. Okay. And just one more, it's also again one of the interview question. Destructor implicitly calls the finalize method of the object class. So object is the father of the classes, right? In C#, it's called superclass. So in the object class, okay, you have this finalize method. So basically, whenever you the CLR tries to execute the destructor, it internally invokes the finalize method. That's why if you see, I mentioned as it is also referred as finalizers to finalize the object memory. Okay, so basically I have explained the constructors and destructors. Okay, and now we'll go to inheritance. Okay, so before going to inheritance, I will just wanted to you know refresh your memory about encapsulation as well as abstraction. Okay, so encapsulation is nothing but you hiding the data of a class. And how do you achieve the data hiding? By declaring the variables of a class as a private. Okay, hope you are able to recall my old classes. Okay, so in general, it's always better to declare the variables of a class as a private, so that nobody from outside the class can directly access the variables. Okay, but how do you initialize the values for those variables outside the class? You can use the methods by defining as a public. Okay, so use the public methods and you pass the values to the public methods, and initialize the values in the class. Okay, and one more way of initializing the variables is basically you can use the properties. I'm not sure how many of you can recall, because properties are a special type of data members within the class, which uses get and set methods to initialize the values. Do you guys remember those, the get and set values? Let me show you that.
Yeah.
Okay, so I mentioned there are two ways you can initialize the values of a private variables. One is by defining a pair of public methods. Okay, and one other way is to use the properties. So I will explain first how do you set the values using public methods. So look at the example here. I have a class called bank. Okay, and it has a private variable. Okay, and I have a method called get amount to return the amount value. Okay, and I have one more method called set amount to initialize the value. Okay, so that means what I'm trying to convey is it is a private variable. In order to access this particular private variable, I am using two public methods. Okay, one is to return the value of amount variable. Okay, and one is to initialize the value for that amount variable. Okay, so two public methods in order to access the private variable. Okay, and here, so it's a class and it's another class. Okay, let's see, I am trying to access the amount variable in a different class. Okay, it says bank.amount is inaccessible due to its protection level, because I have declared the amount variable as a private. So there is no way you can access the private variables from outside of the class. So how do you do? but I still wanted to assign some value, still wanted to do some kind of operations on that field, right? That's why what I do after creating the object, okay, for that class, I will use my public methods. One is to set the amount, okay. To set the value of amount variable, I am invoking this method, okay. So basically couple of values I'm passing. One is 10, one is 150, okay, because that's what I need, right? Set the amount, okay. So first I'm setting the amount. Second is I'm again using one more public method to get the value, okay. If you see, okay, so first I have passed a value of 10 using set amount. So it goes to the set amount, okay, and it checks if the amount is greater than 0, it assigns the value of 10 to the object variable. So it is 10, so it assigned a 10 value, okay, and then it printed that value, okay. First is to assign, second one is to print, and then again I have invoked with a different value minus 150 for set amount. So set amount is what happens, it is there is a condition to see what is the amount value. If it is greater than 0, it is initializing, but if it is less than 0, it throws an error exception, okay. I will explain about these exceptions, probably in maybe in the next week, okay. So it throws that, please pass a positive value, okay. That's what it printed, please pass a positive value, okay. So basically, what I am trying to explain is that it's always a good practice to define the variables of a class as a private and use public methods to initialize the values, okay. So this is one way of initializing the values. Second way is to use properties, okay. So I will just refresh your memory by showing the another example for properties, okay. So again, it's a bank class. The same, I have defined a variable underscore amount, okay. And here you see I'm using get and set, okay. So if you see here, I have used one property which is amount, okay, and within the property amount, okay, I have get, that is to return the value. I have set to initialize the value. So this is the beauty of properties. In the public methods, you have to invoke with the method name, whereas property, right? Okay, so no need to use two separate methods as we defined in the previous example. We have set amount and get amount, but here I have only one property, that is amount, and within that I can initialize the value using set. I can return the value using get. Okay, so get is to return the value, set is to initialize the value. And if you see here, after creating the object, okay, see, in the previous example, I was saying that get amount method, but properties you just need to mention. So properties basically you have to treat them as a variable only, another variable only. It's kind of a public variable, okay. So you say you mention bank dot amount. Amount is nothing but this property. This is the property. So how do you say whether it is a method or property? So if it is a method, okay, if it is a method, you always need to invoke using this brackets, right? Always there is a method, you have to use the bracket. And if it is a property, you need to see that what is the code inside the property. It has get and set commands. It's not required that every time the property should have get and set commands, either it can have only get or set also. But as long as you see get or set, Okay, that means it is a property, not a method. So here in the previous example, we have two public methods. One is to define the value, one is to extract the value. But in property, we have only one only. Okay. So if you see, when I say bank dot amount equal to 10, that means you're initializing the value of 10. In this case, what happens is it invokes the amount. Amount is a property here. You see, amount is a property. My actual field name is underscore amount. You see here, amount is the property name. So when I say like this, it internally invokes the amount property, and it knows that you are trying to assign the value of 10 here. That means assigning means you are setting up the value. So it won't execute the get statement here. It will simply go and execute the set statement. And also, if you try to print again, you see I'm printing again using the amount property only. So since I'm printing, it knows that you're trying to access the value. So again, it goes to the amount property and it will only execute the get statement. Okay, so let me see. Okay, so same as previous example. Since I have passed a positive value, it printed 10. It is a negative value for second object. It says please pass a positive value. So just try to understand the difference between the public methods and properties. Okay, public methods, you want separate methods to initialize or to print the values, but whereas property you have only one where you combine everything using get and set statements. Okay, clear or any questions on this? I just try to explain how the data hiding or encryption works. Okay, and one more thing is about abstract class or abstract, because this is also one of the concepts in OOPS, right? Encapsulation and abstraction. Okay, so I'm not sure how many you can recall. Okay, but I have already explained this. So abstraction is basically like, only, showing whatever is required for the end user. Okay, without giving too much of information about the background process. So just show it what is required for the end user. Don't give lot many stuff for them to play around. Okay, so I was telling you on the day one, right, about the car. So if you want to use the car, you just need to know how to drive, how to shift the gears, okay, how to use your accelerator and how to use the steering. You really do not need, how the fuel gets converted to a energy, kinetic energy, and how it moves. That is really not required. How the engine works, right? You just need only, how to drive it. So you are giving only whatever is required for the driver to start using it. Okay, that is called abstraction. Okay, you give whatever is required for them and don't worry about, don't give too much can for them, like, how this execution is going to happen like that. Okay, so hide whatever is not required for them and give whatever is really required for them. Okay, so I can give you one example and show you, like, how this works. Okay, so anyone can recall, like, what is abstract class?
Yeah, an abstract class is the class that hides the properties, and it's a kind of thing that only shows the required information.
Right, yeah, thank you so much. Okay,
Yeah.
so whatever you said is exactly right. Okay, and so to implement in the programmatically, right? Okay, basically when we define an abstract class, what we do is we only declare the methods. Okay, if you see, abstract class, okay, bank, I have only defined the methods. Did I mention about like what you are supposed to do with the validate card? No definition, only the declaration. I did not give like what exactly it's supposed to be doing it. So abstract
Yeah,
class is only a
will
definition. Yeah, only the
will
definition.
invoke
Okay,
them or will try to bring them in the
in the child
child
class.
class. Yeah,
Exactly. Yeah. So probably you will get more like when I start inheritance, but I just still wanted to show you this like how this abstraction works. Okay. So basically I have a class called bank, iBank, and I have 5 different methods. Okay. So whenever you say abstract class, right, or abstract method, that means you are only declaring the methods. You are not mentioning the functionality of the methods. That means no body of the function. It only just a method name. Okay. And here, this is my class. Now I have created a another class called SBI. Okay. Just for now, I will explain like how this works, but just for now, just remember the concept. Okay. Try to gain that concept. So here I have one more class SBI, which is referenced by the previous class, which is my abstract class. Okay. And here I am overriding all the methods. Okay. Bank transfer. I mean, actually, there should be a real logic behind, but I just wanted to show you that with a simple example. So bank transfer, I'm saying SBI bank transfer. Check balance, SBI check balance. Mini statement, SBI mini statement. Validate, SBI validate. Withdraw, SBI bank withdraw. Okay. So in the abstract class, I have only defined, whereas in my derived class SBI, I have the the function body also, right? Each and every function has the body here. And since you are overriding, you have used override command here as a prefix.
yeah.
And same
Anna,
thing,
one
same.
small question, Anna.
Yeah,
So
please. Yes.
what's the main advantage of for us for doing all these extra lines of code?
Okay. Okay. I will give you a very simple answer. Okay. So here, suppose you have a ATM machine. Okay. So I have a product called ATM. I have manufactured my ATM machine. Okay. I wanted to sell it to different banks. Okay. So one way is I can only create my ATM machine specific to the bank, SBI bank or Axis Bank or ICICI Bank. That is one way. Second way is, okay, I will have my ATM a more generic way. This is my code already available. Okay. If ICICI wants my ATM machine, okay, what I will do, this is already available, okay, in my ATM machine. I will just create a fresh object for ICICI, okay, and I will configure and I will give that ATM machine to the ICICI folks.
Yeah, Anna,
Okay,
reusability
right?
comes into picture. Yeah,
Exactly. So that's why always you always you make it generic, okay, and start customizing, okay, with the help of inheritance. So here I am inheriting the generic class, abstract class, and creating specific to the SBI and specific to Axis. Okay. Did I answer your question?
yes, yeah, Anna, absolutely.
Okay. So
Yeah,
similarly, I have one more class for Axis Bank. Okay. And again, I have written my own logic for all those methods. Okay. And remember, so we have one abstract class, right? We have one class for SBI. We have one class for Axis. Okay. Now I have written one more class. It's a bank factory class. Okay. Here, what I'm doing is, what I'm doing is, I am creating one method called get bank object. Okay. In this method, I will pass whether I wanted to create the SBI object or Axis Bank object. Okay. So I invoke this public method, and since I'm passing a variable for this method, okay, depending upon the type of the string I have passed, if it is SBI, create the SBI Bank object. If it is Axis, create the Axis Bank object. Okay, you see here, I am creating the object using by pausing SBI, and I'm creating the object by pausing Axis. Okay, if you see, I have two objects. First one is SBI, so it is printing all the SBI stuff here. Second object is for Axis, so it is printing Axis Bank stuff.
Yeah.
So whoever comes, I will just create like now. If SBI comes, I will just have only this one. I will just ignore this. I will not do anything for the Axis. So just for example, I'm giving you this, to differentiate between the different objects. Right? I'm giving this example. Okay. Basically, see here what I'm trying to explain is that so as an end user, you know that only validate code and withdraw, check balance, all this, right? Basically, you are giving only, hey, use this specific methods. Okay, you don't worry about how it is going to work, and you don't worry about how I implemented the logic. Just only go with what was required. So I'm hiding the actual implementation details because nobody knows that I am using a abstract class. Okay, I have derived for different banks, and I have a another class to say to differentiate the kind of object it is it SBI or Axis. So we are not giving anything for the end user. Okay, so now you must be clear, right? So only give whatever is required for the end user and hide unnecessary things. Okay, so as you see in the example, the abstraction principle reduces the complexity of viewing things. It only provides the method signature by hiding how the method is actually implemented, right? If you see here in the actual abstraction class, did I mention anything about the method details? No, right? It only contains the definition. There is no actual function body,
Yes.
right? I don't know why this.
Yeah.
Let me close this. Okay. Okay, so the abstraction class a principle helps to increase the security of an application or program, as we are only providing the necessary details to call the method by hiding how the methods are actually implemented. Okay, and with the abstraction principle, the enhancement will become very easy because as I showed you, right? As to answer your question, I mentioned whoever the banks wants, okay, let them come to me. I will create, I will clone, or I will customize for their specific bank, and I will give it to them. Okay, so this is what the example for abstraction. So now you know the
Yeah.
abstraction and encapsulation, right? Okay, so just to recap whatever we have discussed. Okay, encapsulation is about the data hiding with the use of private variables. Okay, and abstraction, it is it's not only the variables, you are hiding the methods also, how the logic works. That is we are not showing. That is like methods, that is called detail hiding. They call it as how you are implementing, you are hiding it. And encapsulation, we can protect our data from outside class because we have defined as a private variable, right? So we can only expose the data through publicly exposed methods and properties. So the advantage is that we can validate the data before storing and returning it. Basically, I passed a positive value or I passed a negative value. What happens? I put a logic to see whether if it is a negative value, don't store it, throw the error, right? So basically, encapsulation is all about the variables, and abstraction is all about the methods. Okay, I will not go through. I will just anyway I will share the deck to you so you can go through all this. But basically, I just tried to differentiate between those two. Okay, so now we are good with encapsulation and abstraction. Okay, now the third important concept of OOPS is inheritance. Okay, so inheritance is basically another way of reusability. Okay, so in the previous example, we were seeing how we are inheriting the bank class to ICICI Bank or Axis Bank. So exactly that is inheritance. You are trying to inherit a another class, okay, to your class. That means you are trying to inherit from other classmates, that is a parent class, and where you are inheriting to your own class, it's called child class. So basically, if you want to reuse, okay, if you want to implement the reusability concept in OOPS, you have to use inheritance. Okay, so what happens is whenever you inherit, right? Suppose let's say you have a class A, okay, and let's say you have some name and address. Okay, let's say these are public variables. Okay, or leave it, so this is one class. Okay, I don't want to complicate for you. So it's one class. Okay, so this one class. Suppose if you say you wanted to, you know, implement, if you wanted to use these two fields in your class B, right? Suppose I have a thing called zip code. Okay, only one. Okay, so now suppose if I say, hey, in class B, I want to use the class A also. That means you're trying to use class A features, okay, in your class, which is child class. Okay, so you can call it as a, base class or parent class. Okay, or you can call it as a child class or derived class. So whenever you say like, hey, I wanted to use the class A in class B, that means what happens is by default, these variables, whatever is there, they will be automatically assigned for this class B also. Not only the variables, even if it contains any methods, let's say method 1. Okay, so all those, the methods and the variables of the parent class will be automatically available for the child class. Okay, so it's very simple. You're trying to reuse the previous class methods or variables in your class. So you're trying to inherit the values or methods of a previous class. Okay, that's why it's called parent or base class. And wherever you're going to use that, it is called child class or derived class. Okay, so basically, I just try to explain. See, if I wanted to, if there is no inheritance, what you have to do, you have to again declare these variables, and you have to write the same method in the class B. Basically, you're going to write more number of statements if there is no inheritance. Okay, so if you see, suppose I have a class A with a set of members and I wanted to say members in under class B. One way of doing is that I need to copy and paste the same code from class A to B. But if you copy and paste the code, it is called rewriting the code. Rewriting code has the impact on size of application because application size grows. Ultimately, it impacts the performance. So if you want to overcome the rewrite in the process, you have to use inheritance. Okay. So this is how it works. We have a class A which contains the members. Okay. And if you wanted to use these members in class B, you have to create a parent-child relationship. So how do you create the relationship? You have to use this. So class A is already defined, and class B, hey, I wanted to use the class A properties or methods of variable in class B. So automatically whatever is there in the class A, it will be appearing in class B also. Okay. So let me so now we already discussed about constructors and destructors, right? So whenever you create a derived class or child class, okay, you remember that, like, since we have the constructors, right? So automatically the constructor associated with the parent class will be initiated. I will show you the example, like probably that would be easy way. Let me show you one example. That I will just, there are few 3 or 4 concepts are there in the inheritance. So I will take one by one. Okay, so I have taken a simple inheritance example for a class A. Okay, and it contains two methods. Okay, method 1 and method 2. I'm just printing the statements. Okay, and you see in the class B, okay, I am inheriting class A, right? So class B, I'm saying class B, hey, hey, class B, try to use the properties of class A as well. Okay, now you see here, I have created one object for the class B. Okay, and you see, I'm trying to use the method 1 and method 2, which are available in the class A. But since I did inheritance, okay, in class B for class A, automatically what are the methods available in this class are going to be available in the class B as well. Okay, let's see. Okay, so it printed method 1 and method 2. So what I'm trying to explain here is that whatever the methods or variables available in the class A are automatically imported to class B. Okay, and since class B contains my method 1 and method 2 from class A, I will be able to invoke them directly using the class B object. So clear, guys? And one more thing, since I have mentioned as a public, right? It is public. That's why you are able to use those methods. Okay. Let's say if I try to make it as a private. Okay. See what is saying? A dot method 1 is inaccessible due to its protection level. Okay. Hey, you defined a method 1 as a private in class A. How come you can use this private method in another class? That is not possible, right? That's why it is throwing the error. Okay. So now I know that I have inherited the class B from class A. So I have method 1, method 2 already available. So then let's say I have one more method I am defining in class B. Okay. So that means, okay. So class B contains two methods from class A, which is method 1 and method 2. And also one more method as you define explicitly in your own class B. So method 1, method 2 from the base class, method 3 from its own class. Okay, so now I can invoke all these three methods because I have three methods available in my derived class. Guys, clear? I'm just introducing the concept with a very simple example so that you can easily understand the concept.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, and it is and if you see, we have only one class, base class. Okay, and you are deriving from only one class. It is called single inheritance. So you have only one base class and one derived class. It's single inheritance. Okay, let me show you one more. Okay, I think this is one already we. Okay, so here I'm using the concept of constructors. Okay, if you see, I have a class A. Okay, and see the class name and constructor name is same. Okay, that means I have one constructor here. Okay, and same method 1 and method 2. Okay, and here I have the class B inherited from the class A, and I have one method 3. Okay, and now I said I'm creating the object B, okay, from the class B. Okay, what happens? So basically whenever you create the object, right, so there is a new instantiation gets created and automatically that specific object, okay, gets invoked. So since you are creating the B object here, what happens is, okay, it comes here, okay, and since there is a constructor associated with the base class, right? I have a base class with the constructor. So this is the one first it executes. Let's see. See, class A constructor called. So what I'm trying to explain here is, suppose class A, you have one constructor, okay? And class B also, let's say you have one more constructor. Okay, so that means I have two constructors here and here. And whenever you say you're creating a new object, okay, for B, right? What happens is basically first it goes here, okay, okay, hey, I'm trying to create the reference for object B, but this object, this class is inherited from the class A. Okay, then let's go to class A first and see if there is any constructor in class A. Yes, we have one. Let's execute this method first. Then you come to class B. Let's see if there is any constructor here. Then execute this constructor second. So whenever you inherit the classes, if the base class contains the constructor, automatically by the CLR, the base class constructor always gets executed. Okay, and after that, if there is any constructor for the derived class, it executes that one also. So if you see here in the program, in the CV here, in my base class, I have one constructor. Okay, okay, and I don't have any constructor in class B. So I invoked the B object. Okay, so what happened? It directly goes to the base class and it invoked base class constructor. Okay, so it came to here and it executed this particular piece. But let's see, suppose I have a constructor for derived class also. Okay, so I am uncommenting the destructor as a constructor for class B. Okay, so now we see we have two constructors. One is in the base class, one is in the derived class. Okay, so now if I try to compile or run, you see, first it executed the base class constructor, then the child class constructor, then the two methods from the base class and the third method from the derived class. Okay, clear guys? So what I want to convey is that, like, if you are using inheritance, always parent class constructor gets priority and it executed prior to child class constructor. That's what I wanted to convey here. Okay, and let me show you one more example. So I'm just trying to give you different scenarios so that sorry guys, so that you can easily understand the concepts in each and every inheritance. So I will give you one more. Okay, then it's already be okay. So here one more thing is, so I mentioned that whenever you derive a child class from a parent class, automatically the properties or the variables or the methods of the parent class always be available for the child class. Okay, but since you have established a relationship between class A and class B, it doesn't mean that you can access class B variables in class A. The other way doesn't work. Okay, you can access the parent class data members in the derived class, but the other way it doesn't work. Okay, you cannot say that, hey, I have a class B with method 3. Okay, and I wanted to use this method 3 for class A. It doesn't work because you said class B use class A, but you did not say class A use class B. You did not say, right? That's why if you see, I have class A with the two public methods, 1 and 2, and class B we have a third public method. Okay. And if you see, I'm trying to create the object for the base class A, which contains method 1 and method 2. And if I say, okay, if I say, hey, invoke the method 3 using the A class, see, it is throwing the error. A class doesn't contain a definition for method 3, right? Because we are inheriting class A in class B. But here, don't assume that hey, I already created a relationship between class A and B, then the B class method should be available in class A. No, that is wrong. Okay. If you want to access the method 3 in class A, then you have to use other way around. You have to say class A, okay, like this you have to define. Okay, but you did not define, right? So basically what I'm trying to say is that though you create a relationship between class A and class B, okay, only the derived class have the mechanism to access base class methods, but not other way around. So clear, guys? One more, I'm just making your life easy by showing different examples. Okay, one more I can show you. Don't save. Okay, so this is, let me see what I'm trying to explain here. I think it's already explained. Basically, the base class constructor is always invoked prior to the derived class. Okay. Okay, I think what I'm trying to explain here is, let me go back to the, okay. So I already mentioned several times that the mother of all the classes in SheAS is object. Okay. Object class is the mother of all the classes. And by default, this object class data members and methods are by default it is available in your derived class also. One second, guys. Hmm? Okay. So what I'm saying is the super class are the mother of all the classes. Object classes by default it is available in all your programs. Okay. And there are 4 or 5 methods: equals, get hash code, get type, and toString. These are the 4 methods available in the object class. If you see here, let's say I'm saying object 1 dot. Okay. You see, equals, get hash code, get type, toString. These 4 are basically derived from the super class, which is object. Okay. So you can always use these methods in your program if you wanted to use. If you recall, I have given this example for toString override. Do you recall, we can always override the toString method if you wanted to use for different purpose. So I was just trying to explain that example here. So get type means it's basically prints, your super class and your current class. Okay, it shows that basically when I say what is your namespace here, inheritance example for, right? So it will print this one dot the class name. Okay, you see. So the first one is, okay, first one is basically it's a object. I'm directly using the object class and creating a object obj1. That's why it's a your object, your class is system dot object. Okay, and since it is, okay, that's it. Okay, then I have created a object for the A class. Okay, it said object 2 is from your namespace dot a class and the constructor invoked. Same way for class B also. Okay, get type it prints your namespace, okay, and also your class name, okay, and then it invoked constructor. I mean, basically what I'm trying to say is that these four methods from the object class are by default available for your consumption. Okay, so you can directly use it or you can override it. Okay, I can give you one more. Okay, right here, right? Okay, so best. Okay, so so we have, different inheritances. One is single inheritance, one is multi-level, one is hierarchical, one is hybrid, one is multiple. There are five different inheritances. Okay, but remember guys, ch doesn't support multiple inheritance. I will show you what exactly multiple. But now you are fairly clear about single inheritance. So you have only one parent class or one base class, and you're trying to use the properties of that base class in your derived class. It's called a one-on-one relationship. It's called single. You have only one base class. Okay, and another one is multi-level. So multi-level means, okay, so you have a base class and you have derived a another class from the base class. Okay, and again you are deriving one more class from the derived class. It's like a grandparent, parent, and child. So you have three levels here, or two levels, multi-level. Only with one-on-one you have single inheritance, but you have more than one level here. So your properties of A will be available in B, so grandparent to parent class, and B properties are available in C, so parent to child class. It is called multi-level inheritance. And if you are trying to create more than one derived class from one base class, it is called hierarchical. Okay, when more than one derived class is created from a single base class, it's called hierarchical. And this is what multiple means. For your derived class you have more than one base class. Okay, so this is not acceptable or not allowed in CH. And hybrid is basically, it's a combination of all different, like, single, hybrid, hierarchical, multi-level, all those combination is called hybrid inheritance. Okay, so now you are clear with the single inheritance, right? Single is you're clear already. Okay, and hierarchical, I think you should be clear hierarchical also, because I have explained to you about abstract class, right? Let me pull up that one more time. Abstract class. So here, if you see, you have one base class iBank. Okay, and using that iBank, you're creating one more derived class called SBI. Okay, so only you have only one base class iBank, and you have one child class called SBI, and you have one more child class called Axis. So both are from the one base class, which is iBank. So your base class is one, but you have two derived classes, right? So that is basically, it's a hierarchical instance, right? You have only one base class, but you have more than one child classes. This is hierarchical. Okay, and I will show you one for multi-level. Okay, so here if you see, I have one class called human, okay, which contains one string name as a name data type, okay, and I have one constructor, okay, and then I have one more class called man, which I have derived from human class, okay. That means the properties or methods available in the human class are available in the man class also. But I have declared one more variable called age and a constructor for the man class, okay. And again, one more class I have derived from employee, which is derived from the man. So you see here, human to man, man to employee. So I'm having three levels here, right? This is the grandparent, this is the parent, this is child, okay. And again, in the child class, I have two public variables, okay. And so suppose if I am creating the object for this child employee, I should have the variables available in the human class and also in the man class to be in this employee class, right? That's why you see here in the employee class, okay. So I have only two variables. I said like no, I'm passing four parameters, id and salary, which are from this class, and string name and age from the base class. Name is from the human, age is from the man, okay. And since these last two variables are not from the own class, rather from the previous base classes, so I have to use a base. This age and name you should invoke or you should refer the base class, okay. So let's say, so here I have created a object for the employee, which is my child class, okay. Okay, and I know I have two two methods or two variables from the derived class, and a name from the grandparent class, and the age from the parent class. So by using the inheritance of multi-level, you are able to access your previous class variables also, or the properties also. Fair enough, guys? Multiple inheritance, more than one level, human to man, man to employee. And I'm just trying to use the values or the properties of human and man in the derived class here.
Yeah.
So clear, guys? Single, hierarchical, and multi-level. These three different inheritances. So if you combine these more than one, then it is called hybrid. More than one inheritance is called hybrid.
Yeah.
Okay, clear? Okay, so let me tell you some theory here, right? I think, I missed some theory here. Okay, so we now know that whenever the child class instance is created, the child class constructor will implicitly call its parent class constructor, but only if the parent class constructor is parameterless. If the constructor of the parameter class is parameterized, then the child class constructor cannot implicitly call its parent constructor. So to overcome this problem, it is the responsibility of the programmer to explicitly call the parent class constructor from the child class constructor. So what it trying to convey is that, like, if the parent class constructor is not a parameter, okay, automatically the CLR executes the parent class constructor. But in case if the parent class contains parameters, okay, if you want, see, it is your responsibility to invoke the parent class constructors. How do you invoke? You have to use the base keyword. Okay, that's what we did here. So here in my grandparent class, I have a constructor, but it is a parameter, not a parameterless. I am passing one value. And in the parent class, I have one more constructor which accepts two values, age and name, right? So since the constructors in the parent class is parameters, okay, since it is programmer responsibility to explicitly invoke the constructor, okay, in my derived class constructor, I mentioned base keyword. Hey, when you invoke the constructor for the derived class, okay, go and invoke the constructor from the parent class. Okay, so by using this base keyword, it goes to the parent class and it tries to execute the parent class constructor. Okay, if you see here name only in the parent man class, I said base of name. So when you execute this constructor, you go and invoke the super class, which is human, and initialize the value for name. And in the third class, we have I'm using base for two different variables because this class contains two variables inherited from the previous classes. So I would say base two values, age and name. Okay. So this base class is basically to invoke the parent class constructors explicitly. You have to mention this base and mention the variables you are trying to access. Okay. So basically, like in the real time scenario, right? So if you want to apply the inheritance, how do you do? Okay, so I just tried to explain here. Suppose you have three different entities, okay, for a school. Okay, you're trying to build a school application. You have three different entities: student entity, teaching staff entity, non-teaching staff entity. So basically three different classes you're trying to create here. Okay, and these are all the variables or the properties of that different classes. Okay, so ID, name, address, phone number. For student, we have class, marks, grade, and fees. And teaching staff, we have designation, salary, qualification, subject. For non-teaching, you have salary, department name, manager ID. So here, if you want to try to inheritance, right? So first, what you need to do is you try to identify the common factors in these three entities. So if you closely observe, ID, name, address, phone. These four are common in the all three classes, right? So what you can do, you can create a class, okay, to store these four variables in one class. Okay. And if you see in the teaching staff and non-teaching staff, okay, this designation and salary, both are common, right? Designation and salary. So again, you can create one more intermediate class, okay, to store the designation and salary. And then you have to create separate class for this class, marks, grade and fee, and for qualification and subject, and for department name and manager. Let's see here. So I have four variables which are common for all the classes. So ID, name, address, phone. I have created a separate class. Okay, and then I'm using this as a base class in my derived class. Hey, create a student, okay, and use the person or derive from the base class person. So what happens? The student will contains these four variables from the local, and also it will inherit from the person class for this four different variables. Same thing when you declare a staff class, okay, you will say staff declare and you create two variables and you will say inherit class person. So these four variables will be automatically available in the staff class. So again here for teaching and non-teaching staff, again you have to say like teaching, inherit staff class, non-teaching inherit staff class. So these two values will be automatically available in my teaching class as well as non-teaching class. So basically identify the common attributes and put them in the hierarchical order. That way, you don't need to define all these four variables in student class or staff class or non-teaching staff. Basically identify the common factors, put it in the top umbrella. Okay, so this is what we need to do. So create person class, okay, and create a student class, okay, derive from the person class for these 4 variables. Okay, again staff class, derive this 4 from the person. And again, when you're creating a teaching from the staff, right, from the base class staff, designation salary will automatically comes to your teaching staff, teaching class, and also non-teaching. Again, these 2 will come here. So you are trying to effectively utilize the inheritance concept in the real-time examples. So reusability, right? That's what all about inheritance. Don't write the code again and again, rather use inheritance concepts. Hope this clarifies, how the inheritance works. Guys, any questions in inheritance? We covered a lot today, but let me know if there are any questions.
No.
Clear, right? Okay, so only thing you need to remember is there is no multiple inheritance. That means you try to access from more than one class is not allowed. Okay, so any questions? I think that's all I wanted to cover today.
Yeah,
But
no.
let me know if there are any questions.
Yeah, no, we are good. That's all. Anna.
Good.
If
Okay.
you have any documents, could you please share it in the group, Anna? So
Yes,
we
definitely.
can. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. I will share the deck, also the examples which I have been explaining to you.
Yeah. Okay, Anna.
Okay. Yeah.
Sure.
So we'll meet again tomorrow. We'll go to different concepts. I think we have to cover polymorphism as well, right? Because we covered abstraction, encapsulation, inheritance, and we'll cover polymorphism and also about interface and all those. Okay. Yeah. So we'll meet tomorrow same time. And thank you very much, guys. So okay,
Yeah,
you can.
thanks, Sajjan. Have a nice
Thank
day.
you. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.